Hello, my friends, and welcome to lesson 1-1. I thought we'd start today with some mental math fluency. For this activity, I need you to grab your whiteboard and a dry erase marker. You'll also need something to erase your markings with. Pause this video until you're ready to start with your materials. All right, if you're ready to start with your whiteboard and your marker, I'd like you to write the first problem on your dry erase board. 6 plus 7 equals. Now, I know a lot of you could very quickly give me the answer, but the answer isn't really what I want. I want to know how you got the answer. For this one, my example would be, well, I know that 6 plus 6 is 12. And I see that this problem is very close to 6 plus 6. It's just the 6 here turned into a 7, so it's one more than 6 plus 6. So my answer should be one more than 6 plus 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. One more is 13. Let's see if I got the answer correct. I did. You may have had a different way of solving the problem. That's okay. Erase your whiteboards and let's try the next one. This time you're going to write 60 plus 70 equals, what could that answer be? Take a few minutes, think through how you would answer this problem, and add it to your dry erase board. All right, let's talk about this answer. The first thing I notice is that 60 plus 70 looks a lot like 6 plus 7. The 6 was multiplied by 10 to get 60, and the 7 was multiplied by 10 to get 70. So I think maybe my answer is the same answer multiplied by 10. What would that make it? Well, to multiply by 10, I need to have the original number and then add a 0 to the back. Let's see if the answer is 130. And it is. My thinking was solid. What about yours? Let's try the next one. 7 plus 9 equals. They didn't give us the answer, but once again, the answer isn't really what's important. It's the method that you use to solve it. So what can you think of that would be really close to 7 plus 9? Answer yours on your board using whatever method you'd like. And then let's see how close our answers are. All right, 7 plus 9. There's a couple ways I could do this. I could do 7 plus 7 and then know that the 9 is 2 more. So I could add 2 more. Or since I noticed this is a 9, 9s are really close to 10. They're just one less than 10. So this time I'm going to do 1 less than 7 plus 10. 1 less than 7 plus 10. Let's see, 7 plus 10 is 17. Minus 1 would be 16. Let's see how I did on my answer. Oh, I got it. How did your answer do? Let's try one more. Oh, look at this. They're trying it again. 7 times 10 is 70. 9 times 10 is 90. So these equations are the same with the exception of the numbers have been multiplied by 10. So I think my answer will be 16 like the previous answer, but now I need to multiply it by 10, which means adding a 0. 160. Let's see if I got it right. And I did. How about you? It's okay if you're struggling. We're going to do a few more examples. All right, our first equation is 50 plus 50. Well, I don't need to do much thinking to know that that is 100. Hopefully you got the same answer. Let's try the next one. 500 plus 500. Oh, once again, I notice that 50 and 500 are almost the same. There's just a 0 at the end. And when there's a 0 added on, we know that's multiplied by 10. So 50 times 10 is 500. 50 times 10 is 500. So what's 100 times 10? Well, to answer that, I need to make sure that I take the number 100, and to multiply it by 10, I add a 0. So I'm hoping my answer is 1,000. Let's see. And 1,000 is the answer. Let's try the next one. 80 plus 80. I know that 8 plus 8 is 16, but these have both been multiplied by 10. So it would be 16 multiplied by 10, 160. Let's see if that's the answer. And it is. The next one, 800 plus 800. Notice 800 is the same as 80, but they've been multiplied by 10. So my answer to 80 plus 80 was 160. So I'm going to take that answer and multiply it by 10. When I do that, it gets an extra 0. Now I have 1,600. Let's see if that's the correct answer. Oh, it is. Great job. For today's next activity, you're going to need your composition notebook, your colored pencils that are already sharpened, a pen. You can choose to use your black or your red pen, and a regular pencil with a good eraser. So if you need to, feel free to pause this video so that you can gather these things. All right, now that we're ready to get started, I'd like you to use your pen to label the outside of the notebook, Math, Notebook. Now, if you have markers or other things that you'd like to use to decorate the outside of your math notebook, you can feel free to do that. But I want you to make sure somewhere on the outside where it's very obvious, it says Math Notebook. I wrote mine all in capital letters to make it a little bit more obvious. When you have your title on the outside, we're going to open it up and work on our title page. On this title page, you're going to write my 4th grade math notebook. By Mrs. McCain. And then we're going to put the year right underneath it so you know which year you did this. So this school year is the 2020 to 2021. Make your inside page look like mine. All right, the next thing we're going to do is turn to the very back. And in a secret location on the back cover, your back cover might look different than mine. Mine has world time zones. Whatever's on the back of yours, I want you to find a secret location, and then I want you to write your login and password to get to your digital textbook. So the first one is going to be lowercase FCS. And then you're going to write your 4 letters and your 4 numbers. So mine are MCCA 1, 2, 3, 4. Now don't write my 4 letters and 4 numbers. Make sure you put your 4 letters and 4 numbers there. Underneath that, we're going to write a capital F, a capital C, and a capital S, and then our 4 letters and 4 numbers. They are not capital. Okay, so for most of you, if you're on your Chromebook, you won't need this information. It will automatically be saved for you. But for others who maybe are traveling to a grandparent's to work, or maybe having to use a loaner computer that might not remember your password, you'll have it on the very back here. This is how you log into your McGraw-Hill to get to your digital textbooks. All right, go ahead and turn back to the front. Now we can tell it's our notebook, our math notebook. When we open it, I see my 4th grade math notebook by Mrs. McCain, and I know the year. I want you to open it up to the next page. Don't put anything on the back of this page where it says my math notebook. You can kind of see it bleeding through there. I want you to come to the next page, and I want you on the very top in the margin to write table of contents. Table of contents. All right, these are the pages where, if we're trying to know what we are learning how to do, we're going to look through here. So the first one that I want you to write is lesson 1-1. Then we're going to put a little colon. And we're going to put that today we're talking about place value. Now, that started on the first red line. I wrote it neatly on the line. Then I'm going to go past to, I can barely see that next red line. Right past it, I'm going to write that it's on page number 1. Page number 1. All right, your table of contents has begun, but here's the problem. It's going to take us several pages to complete our table of contents because we will use this book all year long. So on this first page, right up here in the corner, I want you to put TC. And that stands for Table of Contents. Then I want you to turn to the next page. And at the top, I want you to write TC. That stands for Table of Contents. Now do that one more time. TC. Table of Contents. So now if I turn back to my first page and I flip it over, I can see this is the first page of the Table of Contents, the second page of the Table of Contents, and the third page of the Table of Contents. When you have 3 pages for your Table of Contents, I'd like you to flip it one more time, and we're going to label this with a 1. I like to circle my page numbers, but you don't have to. Okay, we kind of already know what goes on this first page because in the table of contents, it says for page 1, it's going to have lesson 1-1, place value. So I'm going to label this one. Lesson 1-1 place value. All right, this is a great place to pause the video and check to see if you have all of the necessary components in your math notebook. Did you put the title? Did you have the cover page? Does it include your name and the year? Did you add your secret password and back? If so, then did you begin your table of contents with lesson 1-1, which is about place value? And did you put that it's on page 1? Great. Then double check. Do you have 3 pages for table of contents? There's 1, 2, 3. Now I have all 3 pages for table of contents, and the next page should be lesson 1-1 place value. For our next task, we're going to take some notes for lesson 1-1 in place value. I'm going to take notes with you, and when you're done, your book should look just like mine. So make sure you have your pencil with a good eraser and your notebook ready. What I'm going to tell you about now is the story of Numbertown. So I want you to write that down. Story of Numbertown. All right. The first thing I need you to know about Numbertown is Numbertown only has one road. So I'm going to have you start at the red line and draw your road going all the way across your paper to the next red line. Now, I put an arrow on this side because the road keeps on going for a long way. But let's talk about when you first enter Numbertown. Numbertown is divided into blocks, a lot like our towns are divided into. So let's start by making our first block here, and then our second block here, and then our third block here. How do your blocks look? Do they look like mine? If so, then I'd like you to pick a color for your first block. So I'm going to pick blue. If you're worried about getting confused, you might pick blue with me. And I'm going to trace over my first block in Numbertown with blue. Now my second block, I'm going to make green. I'm going to trace over it in green. And my third block, let's see, I'll make that. What color should I make it? How about, we'll go with orange. How's your Numbertown looking? Okay, so some things you need to know about the blocks. This first block, no one really knows its name because we never say it. But the second block is the thousands block. So I'm going to get my green and I'm going to label this block 1,000. Thousands. So the second block's name is thousands. So many of the members of Numbertown might tell you that they live in the thousands block. And that means they live in the second block. Now, this red one is called the, anyone have a guess? Anyone have a guess? If you said millions, you're right. So we have the first block, which shall not be named. The second block, which is named thousands. And the third block, which is millions. Very good. Now, much like we have stop signs, they have a sign that lets you know you're switching blocks. So when you get to the end of this block, you'll see this sign. It looks a lot like our comma. And when you get to the end of this block, you'll see it again, just like stop signs at the end of our blocks, but they use commas. How is your number town looking? Okay, grab that pencil again, because the next thing you need to know about Number Town is how many houses are in each block. And each block always holds 3 houses. So I'm going to divide this block into 3. 1 house, 2 house, 3 houses. Do you have 3 houses? Okay, the first house has a name. We call it the ones. The second house has a name. We call it the tens. Tens. The third block has a name. We call it the hundreds. Hundreds. Now, this is the ones, tens, and hundreds on the block that's never named. Go to the thousands, divide it into its 3 houses. Now, I know this is very, very surprising, but they call their houses the same thing on the next block. So the first house is the ones house. The second house is the tens house. And the third block is the hundreds house. So you wonder, how do they know the difference between the ones houses? Well, this one's just called ones because remember, it's in the block that's never named. But this one is called 1,000s or 10,000s or 100,000s. So now we have the ones, tens, hundreds, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. And now let's divide up our last block. Once again, it's the ones, O-N-E-S, the tens, and the hundreds. Now, notice our arrow here. We could keep going. The next would be billions, but in the billions block, there are 3 houses, and the houses are called ones, tens, hundreds. So it just keeps repeating itself with the block name and 3 houses, ones, tens, and hundreds. Don't forget, you'll see a comma every time you go to the next block. All right, the next thing you need to know about Numbers Town is the further down the road you get, the bigger they are. So the ones house and the tens house might look very similar, but this to this is 10 times bigger. So the tens house is 10 times bigger than the ones house. And from the tens to the hundreds, it's 10 times bigger. And from the hundreds to the 1,000s, it's 10 times bigger. And from the ones thousands to the 10,000s is 10 times bigger. It keeps going. From one house to the next, the houses continue to get 10 times bigger. So each house is 10 times bigger than the one before it. All right. So does your story of Numbertown look like mine? Do you know the block names and the block that will never be named? Do you know the house names and how much bigger each one is? If so, let's get ready to do a couple activities that make this very useful. All right, how is your Numbertown looking? If your Numbertown looks like mine, then there's one more piece of information I need to give you, and that's about the inhabitants of Numbertown, or the people of Numbertown. So we call them digits, Digits. And the digits that live in Numbertown are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Those are the digits of Numbertown. Now, they're kind of hard to track because they like to move around in the town quite a bit. But let's get some practice at doing that. So the first thing I want you to do to practice is write the word practice. And then I want you to write this number. You might remember that that was our largest number from our mental math. And the first question that I'd like to ask you is, how do you say the number? So what we want to do is we want to chunk it into blocks. So here's our first block. We can tell because of the comma. And then this is in the second block. So what is the number in the second block that lives in the first house? Well, there's the first block, the second block, the first house. If that was a 9 there, then it would be 9,000. So we say this as 9,000. And then we look at our next block. There's a 7 in the hundreds, so that's 700. There's a 3 in the tens place. Well, 3 tens is 30. And there's a 0 in the ones place, so we don't say anything. So this number would be pronounced 9,730. Now, what place are the digits in? First of all, can you tell me what place the 0 is in? Well, if we look, it's in the first block, and it's the first house. That means it's the ones place. So I'm going to write 0 is in the ones place. Okay, let's look at the 3. 3. What place is the 3 in? Well, it's in the first block in the second house. First block, second house is the tens. So 3 is in the tens place. Good. Let's do the next one. We have a 7. 7 is in the place is that 7 in? Well, it's in the first block in the third house. The first block is the block we do not name. In the third house is the hundreds. So 7 is in the hundreds place. And one more digit. This digit is 9. 9 is in the, now we have to be careful. It's in the second block. So we have to name that block, but it's in the first house. So instead of saying 9 1,000, we just say it was 9,000. Because if you had 9 ones, you would have 9. So 9,000s place. 9 is in the thousands place. All right, I want you to notice that on each one of these answers, I said that it was the place that it was in. That's how you answer a place value question. But a lot of times you're going to be asked a value question, and they will say, what is the value of a digit? Let's practice. Then, so 82,075. All right, let's practice for a second. What's the value of the 8? So what does the 8 equal? Well, remember, it's an 8 in the second block in the second house. So when we come up to here, I need to put an 8 in the second block, which is the thousands, and the second house, which is in the tens. So if I put my 8 there, then everything else follows with a 0. So I'm going to put my 8 in the 10,000s spot, and then I'm going to put a 0 in the 1,000s. Don't forget your comma. And a 0 in the 100,000s, and a 0 in the 10,000s, and a 0 in the ones place. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit different way of doing that. So let's say once again, I had my 8. And watch this strategy. Remember, I said if the 8 was in the ones place and we moved it to the tens, it would be like multiplying by 10. So we'd add 1 0, but then we'd move it to the hundreds, which is another multiplying by 10. So now we're at 2 zeros. Then we'll move it to the 1,000s. Multiplying by 10 is another 0. That's 3 zeros. And now moving it to the 10,000s and another 0. That's where I want it to be. How many zeros was that? It was 4. So it would be my 8 with 4 zeros. Now don't forget, after the first 3 houses, you have to have a comma. So 1 house, 2 house, 3 house. And then I have a comma. It's the same answer. So you can use both strategies. All right, for our next activity, you're going to want to keep your notebook close because we're going to refer to it. But I want you to keep your pencil and get your Math Journal Volume 1. You need to turn to Lesson 1-1, which is on pages 2 and. All right, now we're ready for the last section of today's video lesson. For this section, you'll need your Math Journal, Unit 1. You'll want to turn to page 2 and 3. It should look like what I have on the screen. You'll also want your pencil, and you'll want your notebook handy. So make sure your math notebook is handy and open to page 1 for place value. Let's start with this first one. Use place value to solve. In 9,027, what is the value of the 9, 0, and 2? See if you can use your math notebook to help you answer these 3 questions. Pause if you need to. All right, let's do it together. Looking at the 9, I know that the 9 is not in the first block. It's in the second block. since it's in the second block, I know it's in the thousands block. And it's in the first house in the thousands block. So if I draw my 9 in the first house in the thousands block, then everything else changes to 0. So now I can move from the thousands block back into the block that's never named and just add my 3 houses there, making them zeros. And the value of this 9 in this number is 9,000. What is the value of 0? Well, that's a little bit difficult. The 0 is in the first block, which is the block that's never named, but it's in the third house. So I'd have to write a 0 and then 2 more zeros behind it. Now, wait a minute. That looks a little weird. 0, 0, 0 is still 0. It's the same thing as being 0. I don't want to look a little weird on this, so I'm going to erase those last 2 zeros. All right, so the value of the 0, well, I'll give you a hint. It's always going to be 0. But let's look at the value of the 2. Well, I'm going to write the number 2 and then look what block and house it's in. It's in the first block that's never named, and it's in the second house. So I just need to draw the 0 for the house that's before it. There we go. And so now the value of the 2 in 9,027 is 20. All right, how'd you do? Go ahead and try this next one, number 2. If you need to pause, you can. Let's try it together. In 82,075, what is the value of the 8? I want you to notice in both of these, they're asking us the value, not the place. So we need to make sure we give them the value. So I know with the value, I always start with the number, and then I figure out what block. Well, it's not in the first block. It's definitely in the second block. So it's in the thousands block, and it's the second house. So I need to draw a 0 for the first house, and then draw the comma to show that I'm changing blocks, and then draw my next 3 houses from the block that's never named. And my answer is 80,000. Next is the 2. I know they need a value, so it's going to be 2 multiplied by 10 in some way. So let's see. If the 2 was in the ones place and I moved it over, I'd have to multiply by 10 once. So that's 1 0. And then over again, so over, that's once. Over again is twice, that's 2 zeros. And over one more time is 3 zeros. So I have my 2, and I'm going to write my 3 zeros with them. Don't forget your stop sign for the blocks. And so now I know that 2 has a value of 2,000. Now we have the 5. Well, the 5 is in the ones place. So I'm going to start by writing the 5. But since it's in the first block and it's the first house, there's nothing before it, so it can't be multiplied by 10 at all. And there's no zeros to fill in. The 5 is just worth 5. A 5 in the ones place is worth 5. Very good. Let's look at number 3. The value of a 1 in 10 is, well, the 1 is in the first block, second house. So I'm going to put the 1 in the first block, second house, and then fill in the first house. The value of the 1 in 10 is 10, because if I have a 1 and I move it over one place value and multiply by 10, I get 10. 1 times 10 is 10. The value of the 1 in 10 is 10 times as large as the digit 1. Let's look at B. The value of 5 in 500 is, well, let's see, blank times as large as the value of the 5 in 50. Well, if the 5 was in 50, it would be in the second house. But this 5 in 500 is in the third house. So to get from the second house to the third house, I have to multiply by 10. So the value of the 5 in 500 is 10 times larger as the value of the 5 in 50, because we went from 50 to 500. And so the 5 moved over 1, and we know that that's times 10. So the value of the 5 in 500 is 10 times as large as the value of the 5 in 50s. Look at number 4. See if you can answer number 4. If you need to, pause. All right, the value of 4 in 400 is blank times as large as the value of 4 in 40. Well, let's see here again. Here's the 40, and then my 400. How many times larger is the 4 in this house than in that house? Well, we move from this one to this one. That's a times 10. So it is 10 times larger. Let's try one more. The value of 9 in 9,000 is blank times as large as the 9 in 900. Let's write them out. Here's 9,000. What do we have to do to the 9 in 900 to get it over to the next place value in the thousands place? Well, let's see. We just go over 1. So it is 10 times as large as the value of 9 in the 900s place. All right. Number 5. See if you can answer it on your own. Write a number in which the digit 7 is worth 70. Well, so I just have to have the digit 7 in the tens place. So if I put the digit 7 in the tens place, I can put anything I want in the ones place, and I can put anything I want in the hundreds place, and I can even put anything I want in the thousands place, in the 10,000s place. I could keep going. You can make any number you want as long as the 7 is in the tens place, so that makes 70. All right, let's try a new one. Write a new number in which the digit, the 7, is worth 10 times as much as the number you just wrote. Well, to make it 10 times as much, I need it to go over to the next place value. So now I need the 7 to be in the hundreds place. So I'm going to put the 7 in the hundreds place, and then I'll put a 6 in the tens place, and a 4 in the ones place, and a 3 in the thousands place, and a 2 in the 10,000s place. Can't forget my comma. But now I have a 7 in the hundreds place. So this one was 70. This one equals 700. And so as you can see, this 7 pops over one place, and that's a times 10. All right, write the number that has a 3 in the 10,000s place. Well, I see that it's thousands, so we need to go to the second block. Here's the second block, and it's not the ones, it's the tens. So I have a 3 in the 10,000s place, a 4 in the ones place. Now they didn't name a block, so it must be the first block with the ones place. A 2 in the thousands place. Okay, they said thousands, so I need to go to the second block. They didn't tell me which one, so it must be the ones spot. They always leave that out because it's so small. 2 in the thousands place. A 6 in the hundreds place. They didn't name a block, so it must be the first one. Here's ones, tens, hundreds. Here's my 6. And a 0 in the remaining place. There's a 0. So the answer should have been 32,604. How'd you do? Try the next one on your own. If you need to, you can pause it. There is an 8 in the hundreds place. They didn't say which block, so it must be the first one. Ones, tens, hundreds. Here's my 8. There's a 6 in the 100,000s place. Oh, they said which block. It's the thousands block. And so I need the 100 in the thousands. Ones, tens, hundreds. Here we go. Here's my 6. A 3 in the tens place. They didn't say the block, so it must be the first block. Ones, tens. There's my 3. A 1 in the 10,000s place. Oh, they said the block. It's the thousands block. If you look on your math notebook, you'll know that's the second block. And so we need to do the 10,000s. So here's the ones, tens, and I'm going to put a 1 right there. There's a 7 in the ones place. Oh, they did not name the block, so it must be the first one, and it's the ones place. And a 0 in the remaining place. 610,837. All right, let's see if you can write the number name for this gigantic number. I see the comma here, and I see the comma here. So I know that this is my block that must not be named. This is my thousands. And do you remember what this next one is? That's right, it's millions. I'm only going to look at one block at a time, and it's always the biggest block that we want to start with. So I have a 5 in the, it's not thousands, that's right, it's millions block. So I'm going to write exactly what I see. I'm going to type 5 million. And then I'm going to put the comma so everyone knows that I put million. And I'm changing blocks. So then the next block that we're going to look at is this second block right here. I know it's the thousands block, and so I'm just going to read the number, 622, and then I click thousands. So let's try that again. 5 million. Now I type the number 622. Now I have to tell what block it's in, so I'm going to put 1,000, 622,000. Comma to make sure everyone knows to stop. I'm changing blocks. And then my last one, Let's make it yellow. It's this one right here, and I see 463. I don't name the block because it's the first one. So let me finish. 463. So the way that word should be written is 5,622,463. That's all of our lesson for today, but you're not quite done. All right, I want to take just a few seconds to show you how to complete your independent practice. You're going to log on to your Everyday Mathematics portal, and when you sign on, it should say go to lesson 1-1. You're going to click, and you're going to see all the boxes. The box that you want to complete is at the very end, and it's called Math Boxes. So you're going to do Math Boxes Tile 7. Math Boxes Tile 7. When you click on that, you might have to let it load for a little bit, but then you're going to answer each question. When you're finished with that, you're going to go to your next screen. Notice there are 5 screens. You can get to the next one by using the arrow. If you need the directions read for you, just pick the speaker button and it will read it out loud to you. Make sure you finish all 5 screens. Make sure you've completed each question thoroughly because I'm going to be checking them. So when you're done and you have all of your answers, you can hit the back button. Now notice you do have a home links here, but for your homework, I'd like you to complete home links 1-1 in your home links workbook.